And join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to assume we're doing the roll next.
Ken?
Let's do the roll first.
Okay, sure.
Just to make sure we're here.
Okay.
Okay.
Dennis?
Here.
Harold?
Here.
Hollenbaugh?
Here.
Musgrave?
Here.
Odricio?
Here.
Okay. First thing tonight, we have a special recognition. Lindsay Jo Durham from the Human Relations Commission is here to present the Honor Roll Award to Damon Perry.
I have no idea what to do.
Damon, it is an honor to present you tonight with the Honor Roll Award for making history as the first out and non-binary person to serve on council. Not only is this a personal achievement, but it is a triumph for our entire community. This shows that all identities, expressions of love, and walks of life have a place in our leadership. Representation matters. When people see themselves reflected in positions of power, they know they belong. When leaders show up authentically, they inspire others to do the same. Thank you for breaking barriers and showing people they belong. May your journey continue to inspire others, and may this moment pave the way for even greater inclusivity and progress. Congratulations, and thank you for your service to the community.
Speech. Okay. All righty. The minutes from our November 4th meeting were distributed for your perusal prior to this evening. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence this evening, Jody?
We have one item this evening. The financial budget summary report for the month of October 2024 was received and distributed to council prior to this evening's meeting and is noted for the record.
Is that all?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to lobby visitations. Do we have anyone signed up this evening?
We do. Lindsay Jo Durham.
If you could please give your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Jo Durham. I live at 1082 Fairview Avenue. I come to you today to amplify the voices of the transgender community and to bring your attention to a day of importance. This Wednesday, November 20th, is the 25th annual Transgender Day of Remembrance. It was founded in 1999 by transgender advocate Gwendolyn Ann Smith as a vigil to honor Rita Hester, a transgender woman who was killed. On this day, the LGBTQIA+ community gathers in vigil to read the names of those who have passed in the last year and to honor them. However, this event is to not simply martyr or honor those who have passed. It is a call to action. We need to push beyond simple remembrance and performative activism to push for changes to the narrative. We must see the intersectionality that race, gender, mental health, and education issues bring to the table, as most trans violence is enacted towards Black and brown trans women. We also must acknowledge that trans youth are self-harming at an alarming rate. This year, we lost 70 lives to such violence in the United States, 300 lives lost internationally. In our own state of Ohio, 3 trans lives were lost, all under the age of 21. One woman from Toledo, Amiri Reed, passed due to violence. In addition to self-acceptance, trans people are fighting for a change to the narrative that no longer allows others to react to differences between each other with such violence. If we only honor the dead and do not push for change, or admit our own compliance in these structures that cause the violence, we are doing nothing to help. To commemorate this year's Trans Day of Remembrance, the BGO Pride Association will be holding a candlelight vigil. It will be held on Wednesday, November 20th at 6 p.m. at Wooster Green. There will be a community meal to follow in the green room of the First Presbyterian Church. I welcome all of you to attend. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tyler Briggs.
If you could give your name and address.
Tyler Briggs. I live at 641 South Summit Street. I'm here tonight to talk on behalf of Wood County Health Department. The handout that was provided outlines a number of the different projects the Wood County Health Department wanted to bring to the city of Bowling Green's attention. Through the Enhanced Operations 2023 grant that we received through Ohio, we've been able to take on a number of different projects, the first three of which included on this handout are currently available to our nonprofit county partners. This includes an HVAC cleaning services, as well as some details such as obtaining 3 bids and other criteria that you need to meet to apply for these services. Installation of touchless indoor water bottle fill stations that we've already installed around 100 of these around the county to date, and we continue to do so. As well as the installation of hand washing and mop sinks. Same criteria as our HVAC cleaning services. We require 3 bids, not of which means that we're always going to require you to take the smallest bid, but it is an internal requirement for our policies. I did want to point out that this application deadline does say December 2nd. That is a soft deadline so that we can get these applications in, but I know that that is rapidly approaching, and with the holiday season, people are going to see that and maybe be a little bit intimidated. We're not hardlined on that date, but the sooner that these applications can get in, the better. As I had previously mentioned, this is currently only available to our nonprofit partners, but pending availability of funds, this will be open to our profit partners as well. I'm an epidemiologist by trade with the health department, so it's been a rough couple of years. And this grant has been essential to help us in a number of different functions, one of which has been a real passion project for me. We are going to be bringing 2 data visualization trainings to the county. Our first of which will be January 2nd from 9 a.m. to noon. This will be for agency leadership or data decision makers who need to effectively understand data's role in advocating for policy changes, funds, and other things of that nature. On April 9th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Wood County ESC, attendees will be able to attend an in-person workshop with Dr. Stephanie Evergreen. And through this session, they will actually create some of the visuals that will be gone over in the first session. This will be more of the hands-on for your data analysts. These are great sessions. We've actually held 2 of them in the past, this past June, and had great reception from those sessions. I handed out my business card as well because you'll notice that on the community resources page, this is not included. The registration just recently became available, so if any agencies are interested, they can certainly reach out to us at that time. Lastly, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the other projects that we're continuing to work on. We are currently pursuing the purchase of resources to enhance infection prevention for our local hospitals and other healthcare partners. We're continuing to provide schools with resources to prevent the spread of infectious diseases, including COVID-19 and other diseases. We're continuing to install those water bottle fill stations from around the county. And we are continuing to improve infrastructure through HVAC cleaning and hand washing sinks in high traffic and limited resource areas. I wanted to thank you all for your time tonight, and please reach out to the health department if you're interested in these services. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any
That's
others?
everyone.
Okay. That brings us to the introduction of new legislation.
Mr. President,
Mr. O'Dorisio.
I have an resolution from the Community Improvement Committee. It's the resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio, to file an annual application plan and a 5-year consolidated plan and execute a contract upon grant application approval under the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Program as authorized by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dennis.
From the Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee, I have an ordinance authorizing the placement of 503 Buttonwood Avenue on the local historic register with historic overlay zoning as suggested by the Historic Preservation Commission. I have an ordinance accepting annexation of approximately 18.87 acres of land in Center Township, Wood County, Ohio, from Ryan A. Rothenbuehler, agent on behalf of Hartung Farms LLC petitioner. And I have an ordinance establishing interim zoning of IE innovation and employment zoning for the approximately 18.87 acres of land located on South Dunbridge Road and recently annexed to the city as petitioned for by Ryan A. Rothenbuehler, agent for Hartung Farms LLC.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
on behalf of the Finance Committee, I have two ordinances. First one is an ordinance providing supplemental and/or amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024. And the second ordinance is an ordinance authorizing the execution of a master lease purchase agreement and related payment schedule for the purpose of acquiring a fire truck for use by the city and declaring an emergency.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to official reports. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. Some of you are probably wondering what is going on with this beautiful trophy sitting in front of me this evening. So I thought that maybe I'd offer a little bit of explanation for why I have that piece of hardware sitting in front of me. We were really pleased to learn recently that others view this beautiful new municipal building in a similar way as we do. Of course, we have great pride in this building, and we can continue to, I think, realize how it has helped the city better serve its citizens. I hear frequently from people in town what an improvement it is when they come in to pay their income taxes or to engage with people in planning and zoning or in the utility business office. And as I mentioned, we were really pleased to learn over the weekend that others see the project the same way. So what this trophy represents is our general contractor, the general contractor responsible for constructing this building, Mosier Construction, was awarded this trophy as a result of winning the Build Ohio Award. Now, you may be wondering also, what is the Build Ohio Award? So the Build Ohio Award is an award that is presented by the Associated General Contractors of Ohio. And every year they host an awards ceremony to celebrate the commercial construction industry and recognize contractors for excellence in construction. Build Ohio winners, such as Mosier, are selected by a panel of retired construction professionals on the following criteria: excellence in customer service, meeting the challenge of a difficult job, excellence in project management, and innovations in construction techniques and materials. And I can certainly attest that all of those categories presented significant challenges for Mosier during the course of construction of this building. We were, of course, really pleased with the outcome, but it's really gratifying to us and certainly to Mosier, I'm sure as well, that others have also recognized their efforts. The category that Mosier was nominated in was new construction under $50 million. So we want to congratulate Mosier on being recognized for their efforts in constructing this building. As we have said from the beginning, it's our belief that this building will serve the citizens of Bowling Green for a very long time. And we are really proud of the work that went into this, to the construction of this building. And Mosier, I should point out, was also very quick to recognize the contributions of all of the contractors that participated in the construction of this building. And I'm pleased to say that all of those companies and construction workers were predominantly Northwest Ohio workers and Northwest Ohio companies. So it's not a surprise to me to learn that we have exceptional tradespersons working in Northwest Ohio, but I'm really gratified for them for their efforts to be recognized in this fashion. So we want to offer our congratulations to Mosier and all of those contractors and all those tradesmen and women who were responsible for constructing this beautiful new building. But that's not all. We also learned last week that
But
that's
wait,
not
there's
all.
more.
I could be like a game show host, right? We also discovered that this building received another award, and it was a national award that was awarded last week in Washington, D.C. So the Ironworker Management Progressive Action Cooperative Trust, an organization based in New York City, held an award ceremony last week where Foundation Steel and Ironworkers Local Union 55 at Toledo were selected as the 2023 Project of the Year winner in the bridge/structural category, which is basically the category, the type of construction, and also a man-hour threshold. There were less than 10,000 man-hours. So what stood out for those judging the project of the ironworkers' contribution was the fact that it was a really significant challenge to attach this portion of the building, which, as you know, was the portion of the existing post office that was constructed more than 100 years ago. Once that part of the building was demolished, this thing was basically standing here by its own, and they were responsible for, along with Mosier, for shoring it up. But the structural steel connection from the new building to the old building presented really significant challenge. This just isn't something that you do every day. And again, I feel like this is a testament to the very talented men and women who work in the construction industry in Northwest Ohio. And we want to congratulate also Foundation Steel and all those members of Ironworkers Local 55 in Toledo who participated in this project. So that's my report this evening. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to brag on this building and to brag on the accomplishments and contributions of those members of our Northwest Ohio construction community. So with that, I will conclude my remarks, subject to any questions that you may have.
Any questions for the mayor this evening? Okay. You know, my father's retired from Local 55.
I worked with your father years ago, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Municipal Administrator, Ms. Treader.
Good evening, Council. As you are likely aware, it is the holiday season and the town is starting to sparkle in the downtown area. And we have some upcoming events in celebration of the holiday season. And with that, some closures that we want to remind folks about. So Friday night on the 22nd will be the community tree lighting ceremony right next door at the library. In conjunction with that, we will be closing Court Street for the evening. And then the following morning is the annual holiday parade. The list of closures and parking restrictions is pretty extensive, so we would encourage people to look on our website. We have sent the information to the local media as well, but it is basically Main Street all the way from Poe to Napoleon. Many of the side streets will have parking restrictions on them as well. We do encourage folks to turn out and thank many city employees who work at these events to keep them safe and to participate and support the Chamber of Commerce, the downtown Bowling Green, and others who put on these events. Also this evening, we have a piece of legislation that's slated for second reading for council, ordinance 9234 regarding speed limits. And we introduced that, you introduced that at your last meeting. That's regarding various speed limits on North Main Street. Out of that submission to you, several of you had some questions for us that you were seeking clarification about determining speed limits, why speed limits are as they are, a little bit more about what went on here. So we asked our city engineer, Brad Holman, and ODOT to send a representative. Chris Waterfield is here from ODOT to go over a little bit about speed limits and then answer any questions that you may have to help you in determining the outcome of that legislation. So Chris, if you would please, appreciate you being here.
Thanks. We discovered, I'm going to say back in April, there's some things posted on 25 on the north end of town that don't match what we have in our journalization log. And I guess the short answer of what a journalization is something that's different than statutory speed limits. Without going too far in the weeds, statutory speed limit North Main, once you get north of the intersection there at Poe by the Big Boy, everything appears to be statutory 50. It has not been posted that way for a long, long time, if ever. So we brought that to the city's attention, encouraged them to do a speed study, collect some data. They've gotten back to us. We've come out with some recommendations, and it's up to the city to decide what they want to do with those recommendations.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Mr. President?
Right.
So if we take the area between Poe and Newton, there's 2 or 3, it was sliced into 2 or 3. The speed limits that we had posted are acceptable based off of the speed study?
Very close,
Close enough?
very close.
Yeah, I think they were 35 and 45 miles per hour, and that's exactly what the speed study and the U.S. limits too
Yes.
came back at. So,
And that's why there's no change then in the legislation for those areas.
yep, correct.
So it just brings for lack of a better term, the paperwork and everything's in sync. Okay. So the area north of Newton Road, correct me if I'm wrong on anything, that was posted at a lower speed limit than what the speed study said?
Correct. It was posted at 50 miles per hour, and the basically from our speed study, the 85th percentile speed showed about 60 miles per hour as the speed that 85% of the traffic was traveling.
It was traveling when the speed limit was posted at 50.
Yes, during the time of the study.
Okay. So in terms of if we have a choice between A and B, A meaning keep it at 50, or B, change it to 60, what would be the advantages and disadvantages to each of those two options?
You want to take that one?
I can take that one first. I mean, based on the data that the city collected, the 50th percentile speed's 54 miles per hour. So if you were to post it at 50, which is, we believe is the current statutory speed, more than half of the people driving up there will be offenders. Most of us do not change the way we drive based on the sign. So most of us are daydreaming when we drive. We just are. That's really the downside, is what does that do in terms of enforcement, in terms of compliance? The 85th and 50th percentile speeds the city collected for everything south of Newton is pretty close to what we'd expect for that type of roadway with 5 lanes, lots of signals, not a lot of driveways. The character of the road is much different once you get north of Newton. It doesn't look or feel like you're in a city anymore, and people drive differently as a result.
So if, I'm trying to remember the figures you gave me. If currently with the speed study, 54% are above the 50 mile per hour?
The 50th percentile speed is 54
okay.
miles per hour.
Okay.
Right? So half are going faster, half are going slower today.
Right. Okay, so if we raised the speed limit to 60, is it a safe assumption to say that the median speed would be increased?
I would tell you the median speed's not going to move. People are driving at the speed they feel comfortable driving.
Is part of the equation for the speed that they're driving is taking into account as one of the factors determining their behavior, what the current speed limit is?
For the general population, no.
Really?
Yeah, there's a very slight correlation between posted speeds and how fast you actually drive.
That's unsettling. Okay. Then back to the options, A and B. A meaning keep it, I forget what I had for A, but A, keep it the same, and B, raise it to 60. The disadvantage that you're saying for option A is you're still going to have, pretty much, we've seen, based on the study, what's going to happen, and the median speed's going to be 54 going forward.
It'll be a compliance challenge, is maybe the nicest way I could say it.
Okay. Is it permitted legally by the state of Ohio for us to have the speed limit remain at 50?
Absolutely.
And there would be no legal recourse for challenges if somebody said, hey, wait a minute, that speed limit is 50, but a speed study said it was 60, but the city decided to keep it at 50? That's not anything that would hold water in court?
I mean, the short answer is, right, and I have to preface everything, I'm not an attorney, I don't claim to be one. I can point you to the paragraph in the ORC, statutory speed limit's 50 for that type of road.
Okay.
And if you don't ask ODOT to declare a safe and reasonable speed limit for that piece, the statutory speed is what it is. And then obviously the signs that should then match that.
Right. Okay. So it still boils down to option A or B.
Yes.
A, keep it the same. The downside is pretty much what we've been going through. The advantage is, at least in my humble opinion, it ought not be 60 right there in terms of being close to when the speed goes down, having the school close by, and additional development going on that side of town. From my standpoint, it seems reasonable to keep it at 50, and it sounds like the only downside to that would be we will have people driving the way they are.
I think that's accurate.
Okay.
I would just also like to note, as someone who prosecuted speeding cases for 10 years, traffic is about predictability. And while I'm not necessarily advocating either way, I don't really care, keep it at 50 or raise it pursuant to the study. I think the concern from ODOT, to put a bit of a fine point on it, is that you have a zone where people are driving in excess of what some people expect them to drive. So that's why the speed study showed, hey, we should increase the bit because that's what everyone's expecting anyway. The danger comes not necessarily from the increase in speed, but from that, that difference between what people are expecting and what's posted. Again, not really trying to advocate either way, just trying to kind of put a finer point on it.
So if I may paraphrase, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if you have, say, I'm oversimplifying, two classes of drivers. Drivers that will drive whatever they think is appropriate, and drivers that will drive pretty much around the speed limit. If you raise the speed limit, then everybody's going to be driving about the same. If you don't, then you're going to have the two classes of people, some that are going faster, some that are going slower, and that could raise a bit of a problem safety-wise.
I think that's another way of putting what I was saying. But
Really? Oh, cool. Okay.
yes, I think it's that dichotomy between what people drive for the posted speed and what people think is a fair speed for the area.
Okay. Good. It's very enlightening. Thank you all.
So it seems like the problem might be road design then. Is there anything we can do to make drivers feel like they should be following the law when they're driving along this stretch of road?
One of the things that is reflected in the speed study process, and especially the decision where to stop the 35, the North Kroger driveway, right as you're exiting the fuel center, that's the end of the curb section. To There's obviously sidewalk all the way down to the Big Boy and Rallies and connects to the rest of the sidewalk network. There's a lot of people who walk in that section. North of Kroger, right, there's some sidewalks, but I've lived here for over 20 years. I don't see people walking up there. And there's not a lot of places necessarily you would want to walk to based on the nature of the business. The footprint of the road, right, it was designed as a rural, high-speed highway. There's 12-foot lanes. There's very wide shoulders. There's nothing that's close to the road, whether it be a curb, mailbox, tree, structure. And again, it looks and feels wide open. And whether you realize it or not, you're probably driving a lot faster once you get past Burger King than you were when you were down there in front of Kroger. Consciously or subconsciously, you're probably driving quite a bit faster. So yeah, narrowing the lanes, curbing it, trees, sidewalks, buildings, right? Like, I mean, we're talking big, heavy, expensive things.
Sure. Would ODOT permit us to do that, provided we did have the funding? And obviously, that's a huge if, but,
Sure,
okay.
don't need our permission. It's your road.
Perfect. What factors did you guys consider in making these recommendations? I mean, we've got the 85th percentile speed here. Were there some other factors that went into it, or were you just looking at the speed drivers are driving today?
80th and 50th drive most of the math. We're looking at terrain, which, like most of Northwest Ohio, it's flat, right? We've got landing strips everywhere. There's no curves, there's no hills. The driveway density is not very much north of Newton. There's just a handful of drives between Newton and Bishop and Nims. Those are really the big things driving the number.
Okay. So is the fact that, and Bill alluded to this, there's a school right there smack dab in the middle of this stretch. Was that a factor that was taken into account when this recommendation was put together?
I mean, there's nothing special for a school. I mean, it's a traffic generator. Probably generates a lot less traffic than Kroger.
Sure.
But yes, the driveway density is really the big thing. How many are there? How close are they packed together?
Sidewalks and.
Yeah.
You have any concern over spillover effects into the adjacent zones? I mean, if we, for example, raise the speed limit 10 miles per hour on the north end here, are we concerned that drivers driving in the next section immediately south are going to drive faster because they're coming out of a 60? Is that something that you guys typically see?
That'd be really hard to nail down because we don't have a lot of before and after. The only place I know that we've actually done a comprehensive look, it's been a few years since we raised the rural speed limit on interstates to 70. We did see the 85th tick up by 1 mile an hour. When the rural speed limit was 65, our 85th percentile, and again, this is aggregated statewide data, right? Not just I-75 and I-71, but all of them. We had a 67 mile per hour 85th. A year after we had, people had 12 months of getting used to 70 miles per hour, that 85th percentile speed ticked up to 68. So it did move, but not,
Nominal.
we raised it by 5 and it went up by 1.
Have you seen an increase in serious accidents where speeds have been raised?
Crash severity will go up, not necessarily frequency.
Severity, though?
Yes.
Do
The
you have
law of physics will,
Sure. I mean, that
Yes.
makes sense to me, but
Yes.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
May I add just a couple points of context, and not trying to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
I would like to note also that we are putting a light in that area as well, which I assume just by default would temper the speeds a bit. But also, the city's jurisdiction doesn't extend far into that range. We're not talking about a great stretch here, which kind of makes it awkward to patrol for BGPD, right? Because you get outside their jurisdiction. They can sit there and patrol it, but there's not very much spot for them to hide. So yeah, we could ask, State Highway Patrol to come down a little further south on 25 or something, but it is just not a huge amount of territory we're talking about as far as the city of Bowling Green's jurisdiction. So that's all.
I wanted to add too that we could also, we're not limited to when we can do a speed study. We can do it whenever, as Abbott comes in and, get that development in there and they have more traffic. I could see other development coming from that too. We can always do another speed study and, to get, updated data as the development happens.
Yeah, well, I think enforcement, if we've got 15% of drivers are going 20 over the speed limit, I think the risk of a severe crash doubles every 10 miles over the speed limit you're going, right? So it seems like a huge problem. I don't know. Again, I'm an amateur here, but it seems like if we move the goalposts, then that can, people would drive a little bit faster because they know they're not going to get a ticket. Then we're doing another speed study and we're seeing that the 85th percentile is not 60, now it's 65 or 70, so we're increasing the speed limit to 70. Then we're doing another speed study because people are driving fast. Is that something that you guys see in your line of work?
Again, the only before and after we've done on a big scale has been the interstate system.
Sure.
But yeah, your concerns are valid. Crash severity will increase as operating speeds increase. That's predictable.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem that if the equation's going to change in terms of what's out there with the introduction of the light and Abbott, given the choice of increasing the speed to 60 and then doing a speed study that may result in it being adjusted down, or keeping it at 50 for a while until things have settled into the way we believe they will be for the future, that would make more sense to do a speed study at that point instead of guessing what will be the future status quo. Just wait until we get that and do a speed study and reassess, because we'll have more information at that point. I just don't want to go through the scenario where it goes up to 60 and then may go down. And honestly, I think from my standpoint, and I appreciate all the added input, it really helps. I'd rather err on the side of it being lower and maybe adjust it later once we get the additional information.
May I say one final thing? I'm
Yeah.
sorry to jump in at the end here. For the purposes of journalization on ODOT's end, this legislation somewhat needs to be passed. So were you to not want to raise the speed at that section, I think we would need an amendment for that, but to still pass the legislation as a whole.
That would be my intention.
Okay, great.
Yeah, although not tonight because we don't have enough people. Yeah, this is very helpful. I honestly really appreciate the time, not only your time and expertise, but everybody's time listening to this. We want to get it right.
Appreciate the opportunity. Questions are good. And again, if you think of something tomorrow, think of something next week. My email is out there. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you.
Mr.
very much.
President? I have a question. The speed limit does go up to 60 as you progress further down the road. How long is the stretch of 50 miles an hour right now?
If I had to guess, probably 700 feet or so.
So it goes from 45 to 50 for about 700 feet, and then it goes up to 60 anyway. So really, the reason that people believe it's 60 is because it's going to become 60 by the time there would be a sign visible.
Yeah, it turns to 60 at Bishop right now.
So we're really only talking about a stretch of a block. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Waterford this evening? Okay. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Lori? Thank you very much. City Attorney, Mr. Brown.
I've already said far more than I normally do, so support.
I was going to say you were quite loquacious. Are there any questions for Mr. Brown?
I've got some questions related to the speed issue.
Are there any questions for Ms. Drain?
Plenty.
We have any issues with the fact that the speed limit on the books and the posted speed limit are different, and we have undoubtedly issued several speeding tickets in this stretch of road during that period?
It would be an issue if you're the appellate attorney for anyone convicted of a speeding offense in that area.
Or if you were the
I
offender.
have to check my records.
There's probably some sort of time limit on that, I'm sure.
I shouldn't have asked. I'm getting the sense that I shouldn't have asked.
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry.
Yes, yes. That is an issue, and that's why this legislation is coming now.
Gotcha. I appreciate you looking into it, and I'm glad we have the opportunity to get it corrected.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Brown? Okay. Mr. O'Connell's not here this evening.
He's not here this evening. We can try to answer any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any public infrastructure-related questions this evening? Okay. That brings us to council committee reports. And I have several announcements to make. Councilmember Robinette has asked me to remind everyone that there is a finance committee meeting that will be on November 21st at 5:00 p.m. in the council chambers to hold the annual budget hearing for 2025 and to receive the third quarter financial update. There are also two public hearings related to legislation that was introduced this evening. Both public hearings will be on January 6th and will start at 6:30. The first one will be for ordinance 9241, which is placing 503 Buttonwood on the local historic register. And the second hearing, which will begin directly thereafter, is for ordinance 9243, which is the interim zoning for the Hartung annexed property. There will also be a committee of the whole meeting on December 12th. This will be at 5:00. And the purpose of this is to receive the design consultant's report on public safety facilities. And unless I missed something, I think that's all of the announcements.
You got it.
Okay. Which brings us to the reading of legislation.
Legislation for first reading. Resolution 3872 for first reading. Resolution authorizing the mayor of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio to file an annual application plan and a 5-year consolidated plan and execute a contract upon grant application approval under the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Program as authorized by the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. Ordinance number 9240 for first reading. Ordinance providing supplemental and/or amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio during the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31, 2024. Ordinance number 9241 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the placement of 503 Buttonwood Avenue on the local historic register with historic overlay zoning as suggested by the Historic Preservation Commission. Ordinance number 9242 for first reading. Ordinance accepting annexation of approximately 18.87 acres of land in Center Township, Wood County, Ohio, from Ryan A. Rothenbuehler, agent on behalf of Hartung Farms LLC petitioner. Ordinance number 9243 for first reading. Ordinance establishing interim zoning of IE innovation and employment zoning for the approximately 18.87 acres of land located on South Dunbridge Road and recently annexed to the city as petitioned for by Ryan A. Rothenbuehler, agent for Hartung Farms LLC. Ordinance number 9244 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the execution of a master lease purchase agreement and related payment schedule for the purpose of acquiring a fire truck for use by the city and declaring an emergency. Legislation for second reading. Resolution 3871 for second reading. Resolution authorizing the municipal administrator to sell surplus city-owned property by way of internet auction. Ordinance number 9234 for second reading. Ordinance amending and adopting section 73.15B of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio regarding speed limits. Ordinance number 9235 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the utilities director to enter into contracts for supplying annual inventory requirements, underground and overhead lines, insurance, and sale of scrap materials in 2025. Ordinance number 9236 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator and utilities director to sell or trade vehicles and equipment no longer needed for municipal purposes. Ordinance 9238 for second reading. Ordinance accepting deed from Ohio Logistics LTD and dedicating the property for right-of-way and all municipal and utility purposes. Legislation for third reading. Ordinance 9232 for third reading. Ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to request proposals and enter into a contract for the purchase of transportation service for the Bowling Green Transit Program.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt ordinance 9232.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Jody?
Harold?
Yes.
Hollenbaugh?
Yes.
Musgrave?
Yes.
Odericio?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 9232 is adopted.
Ordinance 9233 for third reading. Ordinance authorizing the designation of a portion of North Maple Street as a historic district on the local historic register with historic overlay zoning as suggested by the Historic Preservation Commission.
I move that we table ordinance 9233 until December 2nd so that we can have the public hearing before we vote on it.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. Jody?
Hollenbaugh?
Yes.
Musgrave?
Yes.
Odericio?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 9233 is tabled to December 2nd. Is anyone want to make a motion to excuse council members Phipps and Robinette?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there any other business to come before council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.